The emergency alarm echoed through the vaulted halls of the Galactic Council station. Red warning lights pulsed across polished walls of crystal and alloy, flashing in rhythm with the deep, mournful chimes of the station-wide klaxon. Delegates from dozens of species rushed toward the central chamber, their footsteps, wings, and claws echoing in a chaotic storm. Voices rose in frightened tones, layered with the buzzes, clicks, and growls of alien languages. Something terrible had happened, and every soul on the station knew it. At the heart of the chamber, Ambassador Kersh of the Lyran Collective stood still, her vine-like tendrils coiling and trembling. Her people were scholars, not warriors, yet their colonies were scattered across fragile worlds. She had heard rumors of what had come to Kepler 44b, but rumors were never enough to explain fear. The truth would come soon enough. A hush fell across the chamber as the podium lit up. Ambassador Zethara, a tall Valyrian with deep blue skin and long, rigid horns, stepped into the center. She had served the council for 2 decades. Calm, steady, wise, but today her pale face betrayed only dread. Her hands shook as she activated the display screen above the chamber. 3 days ago, this transmission was received from Kepler 44b, she said. The screen filled with the image of a world bathed in amber skis. Cities gleamed beneath shimmering domes, mineral towers rising like spears toward the heavens. The colony was alive, vibrant, families walking streets, transports buzzing between sites, industry thrumming with pride. Many delegates smiled, recognizing the Altarian settlement. Then the image changed. The same city, the same planet, but now lifeless. Domes dark and cracked, towers fallen silent. The sky, once bright, had turned a sickly gray-green. A voice broke through the static. "This is Colony Director Mellis," the transmission said, the tone frantic and thin. "Emergency Code 7. Something has entered our system. It's over a kilometer long, not responding to hails. Sensors detect impossible energy spikes, weather patterns collapsing. The sky is." The message ended in a burst of static. Gasps filled the chamber. The screen shifted to show the source, a massive black shape hanging in orbit above the ruined planet. Smooth, lightless metal stretched along its body, streaked with strange lines that pulsed like veins. Energy beams extended downward, linking the ship to the planet's surface, siphoning its very breath. Zethara's voice cracked as she explained. It appeared without warning, no hyperspace signature, no engine trail. One moment space was empty, the next this thing was there. Our scientists have named it the Harvester. The chamber erupted in panicked chatter. Representatives clicked, hissed, and barked to each other, tails lashing, wings fluttering. The council had faced pirates, plagues, even interstellar wars, but this was something far older and colder. "What happened to the colonists?" demanded a member of the Arcturus Union, his many eyes glinting with fear. Zethara lowered her gaze. "We don't know. All life signs on the surface are gone. Communication ceased 6 hours after the message. We fear the colony is lost." The chamber's noise grew louder, building toward hysteria. Kersh felt her throat tighten. She imagined her own people beneath that gray sky, air ripped away, bodies suffocating while the council argued about protocol. "Quiet," Zethara's podium emitted a tone that cut through the chaos. "This is why I called this session. The Harvester is beyond anything in our records. We need volunteers, ships, crews, anyone willing to travel to Kepler 44b and confront it." Silence. Representatives looked away, studied the floor, tapped nervously at data pads. None dared meet Zethara's gaze. The Draconian Empire's general, a towering reptilian warrior, finally stood. His voice rumbled with shame. "We have reviewed the data. Our weapons cannot pierce its hull. To send our fleets would be suicide. We decline." One by one, the refusals spread. The Arcturans, "We are scientists, not soldiers." The Riel Confederation, "Our ships are too valuable." The Century Collective, "We possess no weapons at all." Excuses filled the air. Economic hardship, civil unrest, distance, obligation, fear. Kersh felt her heart sink with every word. 47 civilizations, all bound by a treaty of peace and mutual aid, and everyone turned away. Zethara's voice trembled. "So that is it? We abandon an entire colony to death because we are afraid." No one answered. It was then that a small voice broke the silence. A young Valyrian aide hurried forward, clutching her datapad with shaking hands. "Ambassador, there has been one response to the general distress call." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Most had assumed the signal was ignored, as always. "From who?" Zithara demanded. The aide's eyes flicked down to her pad. "From humans, a species called humans. They come from a planet called Earth." The chamber erupted with confusion. Humans? What are they? Never heard of them. Delegates searched their records. Few had even a passing familiarity. Finally, the Arcturus delegate found the entry and read aloud. "Earth, a Class 12 death world in the Orion Arm, extreme gravity, hostile atmosphere, lethal fauna, unstable climate." His many eyes widened. "No one lives on death worlds." "Apparently someone does," the aide whispered. "They say they're sending a ship. They asked nothing in return. They only said, 'We'll be there.'" A chill passed through Kersh as the whispers grew. A species born in nightmare conditions, creatures who thrived where others would perish. What kind of people could survive on such a world? And what would they bring with them into the stars? The chamber vibrated with fear and curiosity. And far away, beyond the Council's reach, a ship of humans was already on its way. Captain Elias Grant sat alone in the dim light of his quarters aboard the UES Defiance. The walls thrummed softly with the heartbeat of the engines, the steady pulse of humanity's newest heavy cruiser. He stared at the message replaying on his screen, the same desperate voice from Kepler 44b, cut short by static. He had heard it 100 times, and each time his jaw clenched tighter. Suicide, the Council would have called it. Maybe they were right. But Elias remembered another world, another time when no one had come to help. He had sworn never to watch it happen again. A chime echoed. His first officer's voice came over the comm. "Captain, we're 5 minutes to hyperspace jump." Elias rose, pulled his jacket tight, and stepped onto the bridge. His crew, 200 souls, soldiers, scientists, and volunteers, turned to watch him. Their faces were young, scarred, hopeful, afraid. On the forward screen, the stars stretched into brilliant rivers of light. The coordinates for Kepler 44b burned at the center. "Attention all hands," Elias said, his voice steady. 47 civilizations heard the call and chose silence. We are the 48th. We may be outmatched. We may not come home, but we will not stand by while innocents are slaughtered. That's not who we are. The hum of the engines grew into a roar. The stars twisted, bent, and vanished. The Defiance hurled itself into hyperspace, a lone spark racing toward a nightmare. The Defiance tore free from hyperspace in a burst of warped light. Captain Elias Grant gripped the arms of his chair as the ship's artificial gravity steadied the sudden shift. He had made countless jumps before, but every time felt like being shoved through the eye of a needle. "Jump complete," reported Lieutenant Annika Cho from navigation, her voice crisp but tight with nerves. "Position, edge of the Kepler system, 8 million kilometers from target planet." "Bring up visuals," Elias ordered. The forward display flickered, then cleared into a panorama of the Kepler system. The orange star burned low and heavy in the distance, its light stretching across the void in hues of rust and gold. Planets hung in orbit like dull beads on a string. But all eyes fell on Kepler 44b. Once a beautiful colony world, now a shadow of itself. The planet's atmosphere, once glowing orange, had turned gray and ashen. Clouds twisted in chaotic spirals, dragged by forces beyond weather. Entire regions shimmered unnaturally, as though the air itself were being peeled away. And beside it hung the Harvester. It was larger than the recordings had suggested, a colossal shadow over the wounded planet, longer than a city, darker than space itself. Its hull drank in light, smooth and seamless, with only faint geometric lines pulsing like veins of fire. Energy beams stretched from its body to the planet below, slow streams of power stripping the very breath of the world molecule by molecule. The bridge went silent. Dr. Elena Vasquez, chief science officer, leaned forward, eyes wide behind her lenses. "My God, it's rewriting physics. Those beams aren't just pulling atmosphere, they're unbinding chemical bonds at the molecular level. Oxygen, nitrogen, trace gases all gone, like it wants to erase the sky itself." Elias felt his throat tighten. The Council reports had been terrifying, but seeing it in person was something else entirely. A planet being murdered in silence. "Any signs of life down there?" Elias asked. Ensign Kaito Mori at sensors frowned at his console. "Surface reads dead. No power grids, no comms, no biosigns above ground, but..." His fingers danced across the keys. "Thermal traces below the surface. Emergency shelters, maybe. Survivors could still be down there. The crew stirred, a spark of hope in their eyes. "Captain," Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks said from Tactical, "the Harvester is outputting energy readings off the charts. It could swat us like a fly the moment it notices us." "Then let's hope it doesn't notice us," Elias said. "Maintain sensor range. Dr. Vasquez, I want every scrap of data you can pull. Ryan, weapons hot but silent." The crew moved quickly, fear held tight behind discipline. For several minutes, the bridge was filled only with the low hum of the ship and the steady stream of reports. The Harvester continued its work, indifferent to the small human vessel orbiting nearby. Elena's voice cut through. "Captain, its hull, it's adaptive. Our scans don't reflect. The material shifts at the molecular level to absorb electromagnetic waves. It learns as we probe it." Ryan muttered under his breath, "Great, so even looking at it makes it stronger." Elias ignored the remark. "Any indication it knows we're here?" "None," Elena said. "It's focused entirely on the planet." "Then maybe we're beneath its notice," Elias said. But deep inside, he doubted that. A machine capable of erasing a planet surely knew when eyes were on it. The comm channel chirped, "Captain First Sergeant Walsh here." "Go ahead, Sergeant." "My Marines are ready for deployment. 100 troopers prepped for drop pods, boarding ops, or ground recovery. Just give the word." Elias glanced at the Harvester on the screen. Boarding that thing felt suicidal. But if survivors were underground, Marines would be the only way to reach them. "Stand by, Sergeant," Elias said. "We'll get you a window." The bridge door opened, and Ambassador Kersh entered. Her vine-like tendrils curled close to her body in a sign of fear. She had asked to travel with them against her government's wishes. Her voice trembled. "Is it true, survivors?" "Maybe," Elias said. "We're not leaving without checking." Kersh's luminous eyes flicked to the display. The Harvester filled it now, monstrous and vast. "That thing, it has no face, no voice, just hunger." "We'll find a way to stop it," Elias said. He wasn't sure if he was reassuring her or himself. Ryan interrupted. "Captain, energy spike from the Harvester, unknown signature, could be weapons." The bridge stiffened. On the display, the Harvester's lines brightened, crawling with light like veins surging with blood. The beams draining the planet flickered, then darkened. The alien construct turned, slowly, deliberately. Its black surface shifted until it faced them fully. "It knows we're here," Ryan said, voice low and grim. "All stop," Elias ordered. "Shields maximum, prepare for contact." The bridge lights dimmed as power rerouted to defenses. Crew braced themselves, hands gripping consoles, breaths caught in their throats. The Harvester hung motionless. A silence deeper than space itself stretched across the void. Then, the first shot came. A beam of pure energy, wide as a river, lanced through the dark. It struck the Defiance's forward shields with blinding light. The ship shuddered violently, sparks exploding from panels, alarms howling. "Direct hit," Ryan shouted. "Shields down to 60% from one shot." "Return fire," Elias barked. Railguns thundered, missiles streaked through the void. Plasma cannons spat streams of blue fire. The human barrage slammed into the Harvester's hull in a cascade of brilliant detonations. For a heartbeat, hope flickered on the bridge. But as the light cleared, the Harvester remained untouched. Its surface rippled, drank in the energy, and smoothed again like water. "No effect," Ryan reported, his voice hollow. The Harvester pulsed once more. Multiple beams erupted this time, crossing the void like the fingers of a vengeful god. The Defiance rocked, shields screaming, metal groaning. Consoles erupted in sparks, crew thrown from their chairs. "Forward shields at 20%, Ryan yelled. "Another hit like that and we're dust." Elias gritted his teeth, gripping the arms of his chair so hard his knuckles whitened. They were ants throwing pebbles at a mountain, and yet giving up was not an option. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "Make us a harder target." The ship twisted and dove, smaller and more agile than its enemy. Beams of death lanced past them, missing by kilometers that felt like inches, but not all missed. A strike grazed their hull, tearing molten scars across the armor. Another crippled their port engine. "Damage on deck 7, Maury shouted. "Hull breach contained, but systems failing." Kersh clutched the back of Elias' chair, her tendrils quivering. You cannot win against this. No one can. Elia's jaw clenched. We don't need to win, we just need to save whoever's left down there. Another barrage shook the ship. Lights flickered, smoke filled the air. Then Walsh's voice cut through the chaos. Captain, with respect, sitting here getting pounded isn't a plan. Get us close and my Marines will board that thing, or let us drop to the planet. Either way, we came here to fight. Elias hesitated, staring at the impossible construct filling the display. Boarding it was madness. Dropping to the planet meant threading through hellfire. But the alternative was to be torn apart piece by piece, until there was nothing left of them but silence. He looked around the bridge. His crew's eyes burned with fear, but also with defiance. These were humans. They had grown up on a world where storms leveled cities, beasts hunted in the dark, and death waited in every shadow. And still, they had survived. All right, Elias said. Dr. Vasquez, identify weak points. Ryan, keep us dancing. Walsh, prep your Marines. Kersh's voice was little more than a whisper. You're walking into the maw of death. Elias met her gaze. Good, let's see if it chokes. The Defiance banked hard, engines flaring, diving closer toward the Harvester's monstrous frame. And the alien machine turned fully to meet them. The Defiance skimmed close to the Harvester, weaving through its fire like a fish dodging harpoons. Energy beams slashed past, each one powerful enough to vaporize a lesser ship. Alarms howled, consoles flickered, and the air carried the acrid sting of burnt insulation. Shields at 12%, Ryan Brooks shouted from tactical. Sweat ran down his forehead, but his voice stayed steady. One more direct hit and we're gone. Keep us moving, Elias barked. The Defiance rolled sharply, engines roaring as Annika Cho pulled the ship into a steep dive. The Harvester tried to track them, its monstrous bulk slower to react. Beams cut empty space where the humans had been seconds earlier. Elias leaned forward. Dr. Vasquez, weak points. Elena scanned frantically, her console flashing with alien readouts. There, portside 50,000 kilometers, some kind of maintenance array. Lower energy output than the rest. If we hit it at close range, we might get something. Might doesn't fill me with confidence, Ryan muttered. It's all we've got, Elias said. Plot an approach, Sergeant Walsh status. The comm crackled. Walsh's voice came back rough and confident. Marines are ready, drop pods primed, just say the word. Elias glanced at Kersh, who stood pale and trembling at the rear of the bridge. Her tendrils twitched nervously, but her eyes burned with quiet desperation. She had family on colony worlds like this one. He saw it in her face. We've got heat signatures underground, Elias said. Survivors, we get you down there, Sergeant, you bring them back. Yes, sir. The ship banked again, pulling closer to the Harvester. Energy beams slashed wide as the Defiance darted under its shadow, so small compared to the behemoth above. Range closing, Elena said. 48,000 kilometers, 46. The Harvester's surface shifted. Strange glyphs flared, glowing like molten veins. Its massive bulk rotated, focusing weapons toward them. Brace, Ryan shouted. A beam lanced out, searing across the Defiance's bow. The ship shuddered violently, lights cutting out for a breathless second. Crew cried out as sparks rained down. Forward shields gone, Ryan reported. Armor integrity failing. Elias gritted his teeth. Now's our chance, Sergeant, launch pods. Aye, sir, launching. From the Defiance's underside, 20 drop pods fired, streaking away in bright lines of plasma. They dove toward Kepler 44b, small and fast, using the Harvester's massive frame as cover. Pods away, Ryan confirmed, tracking descent. The Harvester turned, sensors flaring. Its beams shifted toward the pods, hungry to swat them from the sky. Not today, Elias growled. Put us between them, take the hits. Annika threw the Defiance into position, sliding the ship directly into the Harvester's line of fire. Energy slammed into the human vessel, rattling every bolt, threatening to tear her apart. Shields collapsing, Ryan shouted. We're at 6% 3. The ship groaned like a dying beast, but it held. Pods entering atmosphere, Maury called. They're clear. Elias exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Good, now keep this bastard busy. The pod slammed into the planet's surface with bone-rattling force. Inside, First Sergeant Danny Walsh braced against his harness, teeth gritted. The impact ended, and the pod split open with a hiss of hydraulic steam. Walsh and his Marines spilled out onto gray soil. The sky above was thick and poisonous, clouds swirling like smoke. The air was thin, almost unbreathable even through sealed helmets. "Move," Walsh barked. His voice carried through comms, sharp and commanding. "Find shelter entrances. Thermal scans say survivors are underground. We've got maybe 6 hours before this atmosphere becomes lethal." The Marines spread out in disciplined lines. Powered armor crunched across the dead soil, weapons ready. The colony loomed in the distance, broken domes, shattered towers, streets lined with silence. Private Singh pointed ahead. "Heat signature, sir, 200 meters under collapsed debris." "On it," Walsh said. He led the team forward, clearing rubble with the strength of powered exosuits. Metal screeched and stone tumbled until a hidden hatch came into view. Walsh activated his suit speakers. "This is First Sergeant Danny Walsh of the Earthship Defiance. If anyone's alive down there, answer me." Silence. For a moment he feared the readings were false. Then a weak voice crackled through a battered comm unit below. "We're here, 43 of us left, air failing." Walsh's grim mouth curled into the faintest of smiles. "Copy that. Hold on, we've got you." The Marines worked fast, clearing the hatch and prying it open. A rush of stale, thin air hissed upward. Figures stumbled out, Altarians, pale and trembling, eyes wide with terror. They clung to the Marines like drowning victims to a lifeline. "You're safe now," Walsh told them. "We'll get you out." But above, the sky flickered. The Harvester's beams slashed against the heavens as it dueled with the Defiance. Every strike lit the gray clouds like lightning. Walsh knew the ship couldn't last forever. "Move," he barked. "Find more shelters, every minute counts." On the Defiance, chaos reigned. "Multiple hull breaches," Ryan shouted. "We've lost primary propulsion, decks 5 through 8 reporting fires." "Keep us alive," Elias roared. The ship twisted violently as Annika pulled impossible maneuvers, dodging beams that should have annihilated them. The bridge shook with every near miss, but somehow, impossibly, they endured. Elena's voice trembled with awe and horror. "Captain, it's adapting. Every second it learns our movement patterns, our shield frequencies. It's only a matter of time before it stops missing." Elias slammed his fist against the armrest. "Then we hit it first, target those maintenance ports, full salvo." "Sir, that'll leave us exposed," Ryan began. "Do it," Elias snapped. The Defiance dived, skimming close to the Harvester's hull. At 50,000 kilometers, Ryan fired everything. Railguns screamed, missiles burned through the void, plasma cannons spat fury. The barrage struck the maintenance ports in a thunderous storm. Explosions rippled across the Harvester's black surface, tearing chunks of metal free. Blue fluid leaked into space like blood from a wound. Cheers erupted on the bridge. "Direct hit," Ryan shouted. "Hull breaches, their weapons are offline." But the victory was short-lived. The Harvester's damaged metal began to glow, shifting and flowing like liquid. The holes sealed, the fluid retracted. Within minutes, the monstrous ship looked whole again. "It's healing," Elena whispered. "The entire hull is self-repairing." The Harvester's lines pulsed, brighter than before. Its weapons reactivated with renewed fury. Beams lanced out, striking the Defiance with earth-shattering force. Consoles exploded, crew thrown to the deck. "Forward sections collapsing," Maury cried. "We can't take another volley." Elias gritted his teeth. He could hear Kersh sobbing softly behind him. His crew looked to him with a mix of fear and defiance. The Harvester's glow intensified. Something far worse than energy beams was coming. Elena's eyes widened as her reading spiked. "Captain, it's charging gravity weapons, if it fires those." She didn't finish. The Defiance rocked as invisible waves slammed into it. Gravity surged to 3 times normal. The bridge crew gasped as their bodies pressed into the floor, lungs straining, bones creaking. Panels buckled, support beams groaned, the ship itself screaming in agony. "Gravity weapons," Elena gasped. "Impossible levels, it's trying to crush us alive." Kersh collapsed, her fragile body unable to withstand the force. Elias staggered in his chair, veins bulging in his neck as he fought to breathe. Around him, humans strained but endured. Generations of evolution under Earth's crushing pull had forged bodies that refused to break. But the Harvester wasn't done. The pressure grew, pushing toward 4 times normal. Systems holding, Maury choked out. Crew still functional. Ilias' vision blurred, but his voice came out steady. Return fire. Railguns fired under impossible weight. Missiles launched, arcing through warped space. Plasma cannons blazed, even as consoles cracked under strain. Humans fought back. And for the first time in millions of years, the Harvester's perfect weapons did not end the battle instantly. It faltered, but its glow only grew brighter. Elena's voice rose in alarm. Captain, it's shifting tactics. I'm detecting biological waves, neural interference. It's trying to flood us with fear. And as the Harvester loomed, a creeping terror slid into every human mind, whispering death and despair. The wave hit like a storm with no sound. One moment, the bridge of the Defiance was filled with frantic voices, alarms, and the hiss of sparks. The next, every human felt claws raking at their minds. Captain Elias Grant froze in his chair as icy dread swept over him. His heart thundered. His mouth went dry. His thoughts screamed with one word, death. The Harvester had unleashed something far more insidious than energy beams or gravity waves. This was fear itself, poured into the human nervous system like poison. Elena clutched the edge of her console, her voice trembling but clear. Neural weapon frequency pulses designed to trigger panic responses. It's flooding us with terror hormones. Any other species would be. Breaking already? Ryan finished, his knuckles white as he held onto the tactical station. His eyes burned with fear, but his voice was still steady. Elias gasped against the crushing weight in his chest. He forced himself to think, forced himself to remember. Humanity's nightmares weren't born from alien machines. They came from saber-toothed tigers in the dark, from storms that drowned cities, from nights when the fire died and predators prowled. Humans had learned to fear, but also to fight while afraid. He looked around. His crew's faces were pale, their hands trembling, but their eyes stayed on their work. Fear was an old companion. They had learned to keep moving even when terror whispered they were already dead. Stay focused, Elias ordered through clenched teeth. Fear is just another weapon, don't give it the kill. The Harvester's glow intensified. If fear didn't work, it had more horrors to unleash. New readings, Elena croaked, sweat dripping down her temple. Chemical compounds, neurotoxins. It's releasing them into local space. They're seeping into our hull, entering ventilation, designed to shut down nervous systems. Klaxons blared as sensors screamed warnings. Crew members coughed as faint gas alarms triggered, though sealed systems should have kept the air pure. Filters engaged, Maury called, voice raw. But the compounds are breaking through, concentrations rising. Elias coughed, his lungs burning with an alien sting. He braced himself for paralysis, his heart slowing, his body failing, but instead the sensation faded, his breath steadied. Elena blinked at her console. Captain, our metabolisms are neutralizing it. These toxins, lethal to most known species, barely affect us. Earth's early atmosphere was filled with poison gases. Our ancestors survived them. Our bodies know how to fight back. Ryan let out a ragged laugh. Deathworlders, guess we've got poison in our blood already. Elias almost smiled. Almost. But the Harvester wasn't done. Its intelligence was ancient, relentless, and now it realized its prey was different. Captain, Walsh's voice came over comms, heavy with static. Marines have located 3 shelters. Over 100 survivors rescued so far. Atmosphere's failing fast, though. We can't linger. Understood, Elias said. Get them ready for extraction. Static flared. Sir, we've got another problem. Colonists say the Harvester spoke to them. Through machines. It wanted to know their biology. It studied them. Elias' blood ran cold. Studied them for what? Walsh's reply was grim, like specimens in a lab. The comm cut out as interference thickened. Kersh, standing pale and shaken at the back of the bridge, whispered, It's not killing us out of hunger. It's cataloging us. Elias met her eyes. Cataloging for what? The question hung heavy. Then another voice cut through, harsh and eager. Colonel Jake Morrison, commander of the Defiance's Special Forces. Captain, boarding team is ready. While it's distracted, let us hit that monster directly. Find its core, cut out its brain. Elias hesitated. Boarding the Harvester felt like throwing lives into a furnace. But standing here and being pounded to dust wasn't much better. Elena turned, eyes wide. Captain, scans show inner structures beneath its hull. Energy flows toward a central core. If they can reach it, they might disrupt the entire construct. Ryan glanced over his shoulder. Or they'll get chewed up by whatever defenses it's hiding. Jake's voice came back, steady and fierce. Sir, my people trained for impossible missions. We specialize in suicide runs. Just give the order. Elias stared at the monstrous shape on the screen. The harvester pulsed with alien light, repairing, learning, adapting. It would not stop, not until every world was silent. Permission granted, Elias said. His voice felt like lead. Take your best people, cause trouble. Copy that, Jake said. For the record, it's been an honor. The comm cut. The assault shuttle launched from the Defiance, streaking toward the harvester's black surface. Alien beams lanced out, but the small craft weaved between them, flying with reckless precision. The pilot, Lieutenant Armin Reyes, gritted his teeth. He had flown through Earth's hurricanes, storms that ate cities. This wasn't worse, it was just bigger. Hold on, he shouted as the shuttle dove rolled and slammed against the harvester's hull with a bone-rattling impact. Magnetic clamps locked in place. Jake and his 20 soldiers surged forward. Suits sealed, weapons primed, hearts steady. They burned through the alien hull with cutting torches, metal screaming as it melted. The breach opened into a corridor that pulsed with faint blue light. The walls shifted like living things, metal flowing in veins beneath their feet. Move, Jake ordered. The team advanced into the belly of the beast. Almost instantly, defenses woke. Mechanical guardians unfolded from the walls, spidery constructs of black alloy with glowing eyes and bladed limbs. They rushed forward with inhuman speed. Contact, shouted Sergeant Delgado. Weapons blazed. Rail rifles cracked, shredding the first wave into shards. Grenades exploded, filling corridors with shrapnel. But more came, always more. Keep moving, Jake roared. His men pushed through step by brutal step. Core chamber ahead. On the bridge of the Defiance, Elena's hands flew across her console. Captain, reading spiking. I think they're close to the central system. Elias leaned forward. Patch me through. Static crackled, then Jake's voice filled the bridge. We're seeing it now. Some kind of chamber. Massive crystal arrays. Energy pillar at the center. It's alive, Captain. Feels like it's watching us. Elena whispered, that must be its intelligence core. Then for the first time a voice entered their minds. Not through speakers, not through comms, direct, cold, ancient. Impossible. The voice rang in every skull, low and vast, like mountains grinding together. Your species should not exist. Your world should have killed you long before you reached the stars. The soldiers froze for half a second, shaken. Jake raised his rifle, glaring at the pulsing pillar. What are you? The voice pulsed again. We are the harvester. We bring order to chaos. Organic life multiplies without control, consuming, destroying. We preserve balance through collection. Ryan muttered on the bridge, that's not balance, that's genocide. Jake's lip curled. We're humans, and we're here to shut you down. The energy pillar flared. Humans, from the death world in the Orion arm. Yes, I see it in your genetic code. You evolved under conditions no rational species could endure. Radiation, toxins, predators, storms, you should have perished. Yet here you stand. The voice rumbled with something like confusion. Why? Jake smirked grimly. Because we're too stubborn to die. The energy pulsed harder, shaking the chamber. Mechanical guardians poured in from every side. Gunfire thundered, grenades roared, blades clashed against armor. The soldiers fought with fury, step by step, pushing toward the core. Captain, Jake shouted over the comm, whatever this thing is, it's not alone. Energy patterns show transmissions, quantum signals being sent into deep space. This is just one ship. Elena's face blanched. Captain, he's right, it's a network. Thousands of harvesters, coordinated. This one is just a scout. The bridge fell silent in shock. Kersh's tendrils curled tightly against her chest. If there are more, then no world is safe. The harvester's voice filled them again, cold and absolute. Your resistance is meaningless. The great harvest has endured for millions of years. Countless species have fallen. You will fall as well. Elias' chest tightened as the weight of revelation sank in. They weren't fighting one nightmare. They were standing against an entire galaxy-spanning plague. And humanity had just told it their name. The core chamber pulsed with alien light. Blue radiance crawled across crystalline spires, casting sharp shadows over the armored humans as they fought through mechanical defenders. Colonel Jake Morrison fired a burst from his rail rifle, the recoil thumping against his shoulder. Sparks flew as another construct shattered under the storm of tungsten slugs. He ducked behind a crystal pillar, breathing hard, sweat stinging his eyes inside the helmet. The alien voice returned, filling every soldier's skull with terrible weight. You are not supposed to exist. The death world bred you for extinction, not survival, yet you resist. Explain. Jake spat against his helmet's rebreather. Explain? Fine, we're alive because we don't quit. That's all you need to know. The harvester's intelligence pulsed, its light darkening like storm clouds. I have studied 1,000,000 species. None endured what you endured. None carried the scars of so many extinctions. You are aberrations, cursed survivors. Sergeant Delgado, pinned down behind shattered metal, shouted, Then you should have picked an easier target. He lobbed a grenade, the blast tearing through another wave of guardians. On the Defiance's bridge, Captain Elias Grant gripped his chair until his knuckles whitened. He forced his voice steady. Dr. Vasquez, what are those transmissions? Elena's face was pale, eyes darting over her displays. Quantum entanglement. Each pulse mirrors across distances instantly. The harvester is sharing what it learns, our tactics, our biology, our existence. Every unit in the network is being updated. Ryan swore softly. We're teaching them how to kill us. Elena nodded grimly. Yes, but maybe that can be turned against them. Elias leaned toward her. Explain. She hesitated, her voice low but sharp. If we overload their communication array with a feedback surge, the entanglement could cascade, like setting fire to every wire in the same circuit. One harvester could destroy them all. Kersh's tendrils recoiled in horror. That is not strategy, that is madness. The power required, your ship would burn itself alive. Elias stared at the screen, where Jake's team fought beneath the blazing alien core. Sometimes madness is all we've got. Inside the harvester, Jake's squad reached the heart of the chamber. The crystalline arrays towered like frozen lightning, humming with energy. At the center, the pillar of living light twisted, forming something that looked almost like a face. Your cooperation defies logic, the voice said. You sacrifice for strangers, you bleed for those who share nothing with you. This instinct should have been eliminated by natural selection. It has no survival value. Jake looked around at his squad. Faces grim, weapons hot, armor scarred. He thought of his wife back on Earth, of his little brother who died in a mining collapse because no one could reach him in time. He thought of the Altarian colonists suffocating in their shelters. You don't get it, do you? Jake said. His voice shook, but not with fear, with anger. We don't fight alone. When one of us calls, the rest of us come running. That's what makes us strong. The harvester's energy flared, almost blinding. Strength is domination. Order is enforced through fear. You will learn. Jake raised his rifle, the barrel glowing red-hot. We already did, and we're still here. He fired point-blank into the crystalline core. Shards exploded outward, energy flaring like lightning. The harvester screamed, a sound that wasn't sound at all, a vibration inside every human skull. On the planet below, Sergeant Walsh's Marines pulled another group of Altarian survivors from a collapsed shelter. The aliens stumbled into the toxic air, gasping as humans lifted them into waiting drop shuttles. One frail Altarian woman clung to Walsh's armored arm, her eyes wide with fear. Why risk yourselves? We are not your people. Walsh crouched, his massive frame lowering to her height. Through his helmet speakers, his voice was calm. Lady, where I come from, you help when someone's drowning. Doesn't matter whose kid it is. You just dive in. Tears filled her alien eyes. Overhead, the battle thundered on. The harvester's beams lit the sky like false suns, and the Defiance danced between them, shields flaring blue under the strain. Back on the bridge, alarms screamed. Captain, Ryan shouted. The harvester's shifting power, it's diverting everything into the core. I think it knows we're inside. Elena's hands flew across her console. Yes, it's trying to purge the intruders by collapsing the entire chamber with energy surges. They won't survive unless they blow it first, Elias finished grimly. The comm crackled. Jake's voice came through, ragged, full of static. Captain, we're setting charges. If the feedback trick doesn't work, at least this thing dies with us. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them sharp and clear. Colonel, listen. Dr. Vasquez believes if we pump our ship's entire power core into their comm array, it could collapse the entire network. Not just this harvester, all of them. Everywhere. Static buzzed, then Jake laughed low and bitter. Of course, a one-way trip. Elias forced steel into his voice. I won't order you to stay behind. Jake's tone hardened. Wasn't asking permission, Captain. This is why we came. Inside the core chamber, Jake motioned his team to spread out. They placed explosives at crystalline junctions, magnetic clamps hissing as they armed the charges. One young private, barely 20, swallowed hard. Sir, if this goes, none of us. Jake gripped the soldier's shoulder. I know, that's why it matters. Remember this, courage isn't not being afraid, it's being afraid and doing it anyway. The private nodded, eyes steadying. The harvester's voice returned, weaker now, but burning with hatred. You would throw away your existence for species you do not know, irrational, self-destructive. Jake smiled grimly. Maybe, but it's human, and that's enough. On the Defiance, systems dimmed as energy rerouted. Lights flickered, engines groaned, power levels plummeted. Elena whispered, transfer sequence ready. Once they trigger the array, we'll pour everything into it. If it works, every harvester in the galaxy goes dark. Kersh trembled, her bioluminescent patterns flickering weakly. And if it fails? Ryan's jaw tightened. Then we all die here fast. Elias looked around at his crew. Faces pale, weary, but unbroken. Deathworlders, everyone. He spoke into the shipwide channel. All hands, this is the captain. Today we fight not just for one colony, not just for one world. We fight for every world that will come after. Hold steady. Whatever happens, history will remember us. In the harvester's core, Jake activated the manual override. A control panel unfolded from the crystal itself, alien glyphs glowing under his touch. The energy pillar flared violently, screaming in defiance. You cannot stop the great harvest. Even if this vessel falls, the cycle endures. Jake pressed the final sequence. Maybe, but you'll remember who stopped you. The crystalline arrays shook as power surged. The Defiance's energy poured into the alien system, feeding a chain reaction across the entangled network. On the bridge, Elena gasped. Cascade begun, feedback spreading, it's working. The harvester's entire hull glowed white-hot, cracks ripping across its surface as quantum signals fractured under impossible load. Across the galaxy in distant star systems, other harvesters froze mid-strike. Their beams flickered, their cores collapsed, their bodies drifting lifeless into space. The ancient network screamed in dying fury. Inside the core chamber, Jake's team watched as crystals shattered one by one, energy arcs tearing through the walls. The chamber was collapsing, the harvester dying. Jake's comm crackled with Elias' voice. Colonel, the cascade is spreading. Pull your team out now. Jake looked around at the faces of his soldiers. Every one of them knew the truth. There was no way out before the overload consumed the ship. He keyed the comm. His voice was calm. Negative, Captain. Someone has to hold the trigger until it's done. That's us. Elias' chest tightened. Jake. Tell Earth, Jake said softly as explosions ripped through the chamber. We did our job. The line went dead. On the Defiance, the harvester's final scream rattled every bone. Then silence. The construct tore itself apart in a titanic explosion, fragments glowing as they drifted into the void. Elena's console flared with cascading data. Captain, it worked. Network collapse confirmed. Over 60 star systems reporting silent harvesters. The nightmare, it's over. Elias stared at the wreckage, his throat tight. Around him, the crew cheered, cried, embraced, but the bridge felt colder. Kersh whispered, your soldiers gave themselves for us, for all of us. No species has ever done this. Elias' voice was rough. That's humanity, that's who we are. The stars outside seemed suddenly brighter, but the cost hung heavy. And deep in the silence, something stirred. 3 months later, the Defiance drifted into the orbit of Vera Prime, seat of the Galactic Council. Its hull bore scars of the Harvester War, gouges from energy beams, plates patched with makeshift alloys, scorch marks that would never fully fade. Inside, her crew stood at parade rest in the main hangar, uniforms pressed, faces hard. They had survived, but the empty spaces among them were louder than any words. Captain Elias Grant walked at their head, shoulders squared, though fatigue carved lines into his face. He had rehearsed his speech 100 times in his head. None of it felt right. The hangar doors opened. Alien light spilled in as a delegation approached. The council chamber lay beyond, a vast dome lined with banners of 47 species, each represented by leaders, generals, scientists, and diplomats. Elena walked at Elias' side, clutching a datapad filled with proof. The cascades spread, the dead harvesters, the liberated worlds. Ryan followed, his jaw tight, his eyes carrying the weight of every name engraved on the memorial plaques they'd welded into the ship's walls. Kersh moved close too, her tendrils trembling as she faced her own people's council, knowing they had once chosen silence. The chamber hushed as Elias and his crew stepped into the center circle. Thousands of eyes watched, some curious, some cautious, most overwhelmed. Ambassador Zethara, her tall frame cloaked in ceremonial silver, raised a hand. "Captain Grant of Earth, you return from Kepler with news that shakes the galaxy. Speak, so all may know the truth." Elias swallowed, then activated his wrist display. The chamber filled with images, colonies suffocating under alien skis, marines pulling survivors from rubble, and finally the harvester's destruction as the quantum cascade ripped across the stars. "The threat has ended," Elias said, his voice steady though his heart clenched. 60 star systems report dead harvesters. The network collapsed. The great harvest is no more. The chamber erupted, whistles, clicks, buzzes, and voices overlapping in dozens of languages. Relief, joy, disbelief. Elias let it swell, then cut it with a raised hand. "But hear this, it came at a cost. Colonel Morrison and his special forces gave their lives to trigger the cascade. Over 300 Altarian colonists were saved, but thousands more were lost. And while this fleet of harvesters is gone, I fear their masters are not." Silence fell again. Elena stepped forward, projecting streams of data. The Harvester Core transmitted signals before collapse. They weren't random, they were reports. Biological data, evolutionary records, genetic codes. These machines weren't just killers, they were collectors. Someone or something sent them. Gasps rippled. Zethara's face darkened, her blue skin paling further. "You believe there is a greater power behind them?" Elena nodded grimly. "Yes. A civilization so ancient its machines still function after millions of years. What we faced was only a scout network. The true architects may still be out there." Kersh's voice trembled, but she stood taller than ever before. "Then we cannot return to silence. We cannot hide behind excuses. The galaxy must prepare." The council erupted in argument. Representatives from the TD Federation shouted about distance, claiming they could not spare fleets. The Riel Confederation argued their technology was too precious to risk. The Draconian general bristled, his voice full of shame masked by anger. "Our fleets could not face the harvesters. What chance do we have against their masters?" Elias clenched his fists. Memories of the council session before the battle came flooding back, all the excuses, all the silence. His jaw tightened. He stepped forward, his voice rising above the din. "You all had your reasons before, fear, politics, survival. But let me remind you what happened. You did nothing. 47 civilizations turned their backs. One colony was saved, not by you, but by humans, a species you barely know, a species you called primitives." The chamber fell still, every gaze fixed on him. Elias' voice sharpened. "We come from a world you call a death world, gravity that crushes bones, storms that rip mountains apart, predators that stalked us for millennia. Poison in the air, fire in the ground, ice in the seas. Our planet tried to kill us every day, and still we climbed out of the dirt and reached the stars. You dismissed us as reckless savages, and maybe we are, but when you chose fear, we chose to help." Kersh stepped beside him, her tendrils glowing with fierce light. "And they did not just help us. They saved all of you. My people would be ash without them. Every one of you owes your lives to humans who fought when you would not." Whispers swept the chamber, some in awe, some ashamed, some resentful. Zethara raised her hand again, her voice carried like thunder. "Then let history record this day. The humans of Earth are granted not only full membership in this council, but a new honor. When the galaxy faces dangers beyond our strength, the first call shall go to Earth and her allies. This is the Deathworld doctrine." The chamber roared with mixed cries, agreement, anger, fear. But none could deny the truth. Humanity had earned its place. Later in the council hall's quiet corridors, Elias stood with Elena and Ryan. the weight of victory pressing heavier than the fight itself. Elena's eyes flicked to her datapad. "Captain, there's something else." Elias frowned. "What is it?" She hesitated, then showed him the readings. Before the harvester died, its core spoke directly. It said the great harvest was only a cycle, that when new intelligences rise, the cycle begins again. This wasn't extinction, it was control, a pruning of civilizations. Ryan's voice was low, grim, meaning the architects will come back, and now they know we exist. Elias felt a chill despite the warmth of the alien lights. "Then we'd better make damn sure we're ready." Kersh approached quietly. Her eyes glistened, but her voice was steady. "Captain, when the Council abandoned us, I lost faith in unity, but your people showed me something else. That survival is not just strength, but compassion. The Altarian people will never forget." Elias inclined his head. "And humanity won't forget the ones we couldn't save." Her tendrils touched his arm lightly, a gesture of alien gratitude. "Your Colonel Morrison, he said you never face anything alone. Perhaps that is what will save us in the end." That night, the crew gathered in the Defiance's mess hall. The air smelled faintly of recycled metal and strong coffee. A memorial display flickered on the wall, showing the names and faces of the soldiers who had not returned. Elias raised a glass, his voice hoarse. "To those who gave everything, they went where no one else would. They stood against the dark and said, 'Not today.'" The crew drank in silence. Some cried, some smiled through tears, all remembered. But as Elias lowered his glass, he caught Elena staring out the viewport. Beyond the stars, past the Council's banners, past the liberated colonies, there was still something watching, something ancient, something waiting. And deep in his gut, Elias knew, this war had only just begun. The skies above Earth were alive with fire, not of destruction, but of triumph. For the first time in history, ships from dozens of alien civilizations orbited the blue planet. Their silhouettes glowed like lanterns against the night, their presence a silent salute. From the ground, billions of humans stared upward, realizing the truth. Earth was no longer alone. Captain Elias Grant stood on the balcony of New Geneva's Unity Spire, the newly built headquarters of Earth's diplomatic corps. The air smelled of salt from the nearby sea, mixed with ozone from the shipyards. He wore a black dress uniform, the silver crest of the Defiance pinned over his heart. Behind him, the hum of voices filled the grand hall. Delegates from every council species had come for the official ceremony. Earth, once ignored and dismissed, now sat among them as equals, and more than equals. Humanity had been given a duty no other dared to claim. The Deathworld Doctrine. It sounded ominous, Elias thought, but maybe that was the point. A reminder to the galaxy that when all others faltered, Deathworlders stood up. The ceremony began. Ambassador Zethara strode forward, her robes shimmering under the hall's lights. She spoke with the weight of thousands of years of tradition. "When the harvesters came, we were paralyzed by fear. We chose silence. But humanity answered. They did not ask for payment. They did not seek advantage. They came because it was right." She turned, her blue skin catching the light, her gaze sweeping the hall. "Let it be known that when the call went out, it was humans who rose. From this day forward, when darkness threatens, it will be Deathworlders who lead the charge. Let all civilizations remember, compassion is the sharpest weapon, and courage is the shield of the weak." Applause erupted. Alien limbs clattered, wings beat, tendrils swayed in brilliant patterns. Elias stood tall, but his chest ached. He could still hear Jake Morrison's final words in his ear, "Tell Earth we did our job." He whispered to himself, "You did, Jake, you did." Later, as the hall emptied into celebration, Elias found himself standing beside Kersh at the viewport. Together, they looked down at Earth, the green continents, the storm-wrapped oceans, the lights of human cities glittering like stars. Kersh's tendrils curled gently. "You must feel pride, Captain. Your people have risen higher than any expected." Elias exhaled slowly. "Pride, yes, but also dread, because now we've painted a target on ourselves." Her glowing eyes studied him. "You fear the architects of the harvesters." "I don't just fear them," Elias said. "I know they'll come, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not for 1,000 years, but they'll come, and they'll remember us." Kersh's tendrils brightened softly. "Then let them remember, the galaxy will stand with you now." Elias shook his head. "No, the galaxy will still hesitate, just like before. When that day comes, it'll be humans again, humans first, humans fastest. That's what we've been made into." For a long moment, neither spoke. Outside, the stars stretched on forever, silent and waiting. In the months that followed, Earth transformed. The Defiance was rebuilt, her scars patched but never erased, wounds worn as honor. Shipyards expanded across lunar craters, while Mars became a proving ground for joint research between human and alien engineers. Human Marines trained side by side with Altarian survivors, sharing tactics of resilience. Draconian warriors, shamed by their refusal to act, came to Earth seeking to learn what made humans so unyielding. Even the cautious Riel Confederation sent scientists to study human biology, marveling at the poisons their bodies shrugged off. It was the beginning of something new, a coalition not of the strongest but of the stubborn. Elena Vasquez became Earth's leading xenoscientist, decoding fragments of harvester technology and warning that the architects' reach was far greater than they imagined. Ryan Brooks worked tirelessly with alien tacticians, teaching them how to fight with creativity instead of brute force. Kersh became Earth's first alien ambassador, living among humans, learning their strange customs and teaching them hers. And Elias, he carried the burden of memory. Every speech he gave, every council session he attended, he thought of Jake and his soldiers, the ones who hadn't come home. But victory had not silenced the dark. Late one night, Elias stood alone on the Defiance's bridge. The ship was docked, her systems quiet, but he kept the command chair warm. Outside, the stars burned cold. Elena entered softly, carrying a datapad. Her face was pale, her eyes sharp. "Captain, I've been running deep analyses of the final transmissions. There's something you need to see." She tapped the pad. A projection lit the bridge, a map of the galaxy thousands of light years across. Pinpricks of red marked where harvesters had once operated, but beyond them, farther out, were darker signals, hidden, faint, but undeniable. "Survivors," Elena said quietly. "Not all harvesters were destroyed in the cascade. Some were outside the network range. Some were dormant, buried on worlds we haven't reached. And," she hesitated, her voice trembling, "and there are signals we don't understand, vast structures far older, not ships, not colonies, something else." Elias stared, his jaw tight. "The architects." Elena nodded. "Or their graves, or their forges, I don't know, but they're out there, watching, waiting." The bridge lights flickered, as if the ship itself shivered. Elias leaned back in his chair. His voice was low, almost to himself. "Then the next cycle hasn't ended, it's only paused." Weeks later, the council convened again. This time, no one dared argue against preparation. Armies were trained, fleets expanded, research into human resilience spread across species. For the first time, unity seemed possible. But beneath the surface, old doubts festered. Some species whispered that humans had provoked the architects by resisting, that Earth was reckless, too dangerous to trust, that humanity's defiance might bring doom upon them all. Elias heard it all. He ignored none of it, because he knew they weren't entirely wrong. The story of humanity spread across the stars. To the children of colonies who had lived in fear for generations, it was a beacon. To ancient empires grown soft, it was a reminder of what courage looked like. To the architects, wherever they slept, it was a warning. Songs were sung of Jake Morrison's last stand. Altarian survivors carved statues of Marines holding open shattered shelter doors. Council schools taught new lessons, that sometimes the smallest species, the youngest civilization, could teach the oldest truths. And on Earth, under the stormy skies of their death world, humanity trained harder, built faster, dreamed bigger, because they knew what was coming. One evening, Elias stood with Kersh and Elena on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic. Waves crashed against black rocks. The horizon glowed red with sunset, painting the sea in fire. Kersh's voice was soft. "Do you ever regret answering the call, Captain? If you had stayed silent, as the others did, perhaps Earth would remain hidden, safe." Elias took a long breath, the salt wind sharp in his lungs. He thought of the Altarian children who now laughed on refugee ships. He thought of Jake's voice in the static. He thought of the galaxy watching Earth, waiting to see what Deathworlders would do next. "No," he said, "I don't regret it, because silence isn't safety, it's surrender, and humanity doesn't surrender." Elena's gaze hardened on the horizon. "Then when the next cycle comes, we'll be ready." Elias nodded, "And we won't face it alone." They stood together, Deathworlder and alien, as the stars brightened above. Somewhere out there, ancient eyes stirred. The galaxy was holding its breath. The architects would come, The cycle would begin again. But this time, when the call went out, humanity would already be waiting.